What are the economic and social justifications for subsidies? Let's try to evaluate subsidies by arguing for it and also against it, and see what are the costs and benefits of subsidies. Subsidy might be justified if it encourages increased supply and consumption of products that yield high external benefits or social benefits. This can help to overcome a market failure problem. So let's try to argue on the for side. The most important benefit by keeping or giving subsidies is to control inflation and keeping the prices down. For example, when there is a steep increase in world crude oil prices, the government tend to give subsidies on the crude oil so that it affects all the businesses. The petrol, the oil prices affect all the businesses. So when governments are giving subsidies, it tends to control the inflation in the short run at least. And the second important point is by encouraging the consumption of what is known as merit goods. Now, environmentally friendly goods, for example hybrid cars, governments tend to give subsidies on purchasing them, or also even when you are driving these cars, then there are road tax and so on, though would be much lower than the normal car. In this way, the government is trying to include subsidies for investments in environmental goods and services, so people are encouraged more to buy these kind of merit goods. And the third important point for subsidies is that it will reduce the cost of capital investment projects. For example, after post-war, Sri Lankan government tended to give more subsidies and tax exemptions for the tourist industry, so that the foreign investments would come into the country to develop good hotels in capital and around other tourist areas. So reducing the cost of capital investment projects is also key in bringing in money to a country or to the economy, which would have a lot of social benefits. We will have more foreign exchange coming into the country, we have more employment in the tourism sector, and also increase the GDP. And the last point would be subsidies tend to slow down the process of long-term decline in a specific industry. So it tends to reduce or slow down the process of long-term decline. Now, this is specifically for agricultural industry. When the industry is declining, it would slow this process by giving fertilizer subsidies to farmers and to increase their agricultural production. But having said all these benefits, there's also a cost that we have to pay because of subsidies. Mainly free market economists, they always argue that subsidies distort the working of free market mechanism and can lead to government failure, where intervention leads to a worse distribution of resources. So one of the strong against argument is that it distorts the market. As you can see, the equilibrium price was 30 rupees in that specific example that we have discussed earlier, and because of subsidies it has distorted the market and the price came down for the consumer at 25 rupees. Now, if there was no subsidies and if people are not buying this product, so the producers might find different ways of reducing the price by investing in new technology and so on. So because of subsidies, it distorts the market and it discourages what is known as efficiency. So it is actually encouraging inefficiency. Another example for this is when US government bailed out a lot of the financial institutions during the 2007-2008 market failure, because the justification given by the federal government was these institutions were too big to fail. But because of that, it encouraged inefficiency. If there were more strict rules and punishing or penalizing these institutions, then there might be more structurally efficient institutions. And because the institutions know that the government is going to bail them out, it might encourage inefficiency systematically. So that is one of the major argument against subsidies. And also there is a big opportunity cost. As you can see, if the government is going to pay for these subsidies, then they are unable to take up any other projects in increasing the productivity or increasing the efficiency of an economy. They can take more capital investments, or they can invest in more public goods, and that might turn into giving more benefits to the society rather than giving subsidies to a specific industry. So there is also another problem of arbitrary assistance. Arbitrary assistance. As you can see, the decisions normally made whom to give or who is going to benefit is more of a political policy rather than thinking of the economic and social benefits. So the political parties or the government is going to encourage or to increase their popularity, and it will give a more of a arbitrary assistance and not necessarily make a real impact, because the market would adjust themselves to subsidies, and in the long run it may not give the desired social benefits. And also, who is going to pay and who is going to benefit? Now, the final cost of a subsidy usually falls on taxpayers, who themselves may have derived no benefit from this subsidy apart from the corporation that they are receiving the subsidy. So there is a thin line between the economic benefits between the for and against of subsidies, but this is the general idea. We cannot generally speak of saying that generalize and say subsidies are bad for an economy, but we need to take case by case, saying that which is beneficial to the economy or not. So generally speaking, these are the cost and benefits of subsidies, but for specific policies you can argue whether it is more costlier to the economy or it is more beneficial to the economy. That we need to see what are the real social or economic benefits through the subsidy. So this concludes the effects of subsidies on market operation.